Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. Sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man walaha ma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this episode, I wanted to talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala highlighting the selflessness of the Ansar. In Surah Hashr, verses number 7, 8 and 9, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the authority He had given the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to distribute the spoils of war among the muhajirin, primarily so that they would be lifted to a state of independence, because they had sacrificed everything for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when they had immigrated to Medina. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, while talking about the sacrifices of the muhajirin and how they did so for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, highlights the Ansar and how selfless they were in giving preference to their muhajirin brethren. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ. That the ones who were already residing in Medina and had accepted Islam before the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba had immigrated to Medina, they love the muhajirin. They love their muhajirin brethren. And not only that, يحبون من هاجر إليهم ولا يجدون في صدورهم حاجة مما أوتوا ويؤثرون على أنفسهم ولو كان بهم خصاصة. That they love their muhajirin brethren and they don't want what their muhajirin brethren are given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't covet that. They prefer them over themselves, وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةً, even if they are in need themselves. In other words, the Ansar are selfless to the point, even if they are in need, they recognize the greater need of their muhajirin brethren. And this is an instructive moment for us, that when it comes to a selfless, healthy, functioning society, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us that the way it will be functioning in a healthy manner is if every person not only gives their due rights to each other, but also prefers others to themselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us in verse number 7 of Surah Hashr that the muhajirin and the Ansar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given authority to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to distribute wealth as he saw fit, so that the wealth would not accumulate within only a certain group of people, so that the wealth would be spread within the community. And the benefit, or one of the benefits of sadaqah, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the mechanism that allows us to give and prevents hoarding among ourselves. In other words, this idea of accumulation, that we constantly try to earn and gather and have as much as possible for ourselves and less for others, this is worked against by a person giving away and by a person preferring others to themselves. That when a person can put somebody else's needs in front of themselves, that's when a person gets the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is of course something that we all do naturally throughout our lives. Parents sacrifice for their children, the elder siblings might sacrifice for their younger siblings, and so on and so forth. However, it's very easy to prefer others to yourself when you have a connection with them, when you have blood ties with them, when they owe you a favor, or when you can benefit from them by you sacrificing for them. It's very easy to do. However, when a person has no connection with someone else, and the only thing that might bind them together are the bonds of īmān, that's when a person is truly tested. That this accumulated wealth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you and I, how much of it are we willing to sacrifice it for others who we don't know, who we may never meet, and who can absolutely be of no benefit to us, perhaps other than their du'as, that we're not going to get anything from them other than their du'as. But are we willing to sacrifice what we might achieve in terms of comfort for the sake of others? Because if we do so, we are following the example of the Ansar. We are following the example of the people who preferred others even though they were in need. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala highlighted them in the Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide, bless and protect us. Give us the ability to be selfless in everything that we have, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can have mercy upon us on the Day of Judgment. Wallahu a'lamu billahi tawfiq. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.